Hello again. Time for some video instruction. This drawing is called the closed-end wrench. This is geometric construction with trigonometric function. High-level math. You are capable of doing this. You need to pay attention to details. This drawing, the closed-end wrench, has 5 different options for the wrench heads, but the only one that is required as a drawing project, at least in my classes, is the one that's on the main part of the drawing, so you can ignore the top drawings at half size. Certainly someday maybe I might use them, but in all probability I won't. Now, the closed-end wrench is also the first drawing that you will see that has what's called a line break, and that's done in the middle, and that's one of the few areas where you're allowed to do freehand sketching. There is no particular way of doing it. It looks as though the handle was made out of a material that was easily breakable, and it was just snapped. So the actual long dimensions that run between the parts that are broken apart will actually not work. So you can't set the drawing up using the length on the left and right centers. You actually have to have a different spot set up. So I'll let you just look at this for just a second. Notice in the where the curve is right here, see that little plus mark? When you see that in math class, I always had trouble with that when I was a student because I didn't understand the process. What I'm going to be explaining in this process is how that you will use a compass to find that location to create that 3/4 inch radius on both sides. This is a drawing that you have to do 2 of them in, but you use the same measurement. When a measurement is not there on the other side, it generally will just mean that it's the exact same one, and just use it over so you don't have a bunch of dimensions that can confuse issues for you. Well, here we go. I'm going to explain a little bit first. You're going to create a hexagon about the outside of a 1.5 inch diameter circle, which you'll use a circle template for. These radii over here, the 3/8 and the 11/16, you'll be able to use a circle template by doubling the fractional size. These measurements, they don't matter. Those are what the thing would be made up of if it was the actual size of it. But this drawing has the line breaks in the middle. Also note that the hexagon is offset by 15 degrees, so you're going to learn today how to use the 2 triangles, the 30, 60, 90 and the 45, 90 together with your t-square. Remember, it's always important to use your t-square when doing this. So now I'm going to zoom out, pull the page off that you've had a little bit of time to look at it. Give me just a couple of seconds here to get ourselves aligned. And then I'm going to bring it in a little bit closer. And I'm going to just put the compass on here because the autofocus on the camera works much better when there's some type of object there besides the camera. Now, because of the overhead angle, the borders look a little bit slanted, slanting out from the bottom out towards the top, left and right. That's merely just the way the camera is set up. I have done the border title blocks for you, and I don't know that the title block will actually be visible, but you know how to do that, and it would be different for different types of classes. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that. What I have done in the working area within the border lines, I have found the horizontal center line right here. Then there is a handout sheet that you will get, and the handout sheet has the starting points to start this drawing. You're going to measure 1 9/16 of an inch from the left border and create a vertical center line. Then from that vertical center you're going to go 2 3/16 inches and create another center line for another radius. And then you're going to go from the right border 15/16 of an inch and you're going to make another vertical line. I've already done that and prepared that. when you're doing a drawing such as this, there really isn't an order that you particularly have to do things. It's a matter of doing what you want when you feel comfortable with it. This is a tough drawing. You will be able to do this, so I'm not overly concerned with where you're going to actually begin. So if you start on the left or you start on the right, I don't really particularly care because there's multiple ways to solve this problem. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the 2 5/8 inch diameter circle right here. That means I will set my compass to half that size. Half that size will be 1 5/16 of an inch. Remember to cut a fraction in half. The top number stays the same and you double the bottom. So if you have 5/8, you double it to 5/16. I'm going to bury the point in that intersection of those center lines, and I'm going to drag the compass around. And I happen to have one that has very light lead. And now that part is completed. Next, the inner circle where we're going to be constructing the hexagon is going to be 1.5 inches in diameter. So I'm going to find on the circle template now, because there isn't a circle template for 2 5/8. There is for 1 5/8, but not 2 5/8. The tripod doesn't allow me, but we've got 1 1/4, 1 3/8, 1 1/2. There are little pinholes that are located here, 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 and here, and they line up with the center lines on the drawing. I'm going to draw a circle here. Now that part's done. On the right side here, there's going to be an 11/16 radius. Well, if we do the math on that, that allows us to use a circle template that is 1 3/8. And the 1 3/8 is the second one in. I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to draw a half a circle that will be the outside portion of the handle of the wrench. Then the inner circle that's on the sheet is actually 3/4 of an inch. And 3/4 of an inch is right here. And this one doesn't have pinholes, it actually has marks. I'm going to draw a half circle that way. Then I'm going to move over to this particular center, and that will give me the location for the other half circle. Now this is kind of an indented area that would represent the handle, and when I prefer that you use something like a straight edge to create the lines between these, and it really doesn't matter where you put your line break, just kind of in the middle someplace. It really doesn't matter. Don't put it near the ends. And I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to leave an opening. Next, because I only have 1/2 circle and I'm going up here to where I have this radius created that I'm going to create on each side, I'm going to use the T-square. And I'm again going to start here where the line break is, and then I'm going to go there, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to bring it up fairly close. Again, same thing on the other side, same thing over here. I'm going to create my break. When you have lines that end like this, try to make sure that you make your breaks actually hit that line. And as you can see, it's kind of sloppy, but it's representing something that is actually broken to show shortness. And this is a universal convention, so this is not something I made up. And when I learned it, it was the same thing. It's just freehand draw it, and you can make them bigger or smaller. It really doesn't matter. Just so that it looks like it's broken and snapped off. And that's it. That's part of that done. Okay, now the example sheet that I have provided has this funky little drawing on the back that's a sketch. that is an overlay, and it's very confusing from the standpoint that you've got all of these in here. What it will do is it will give us the place where we draw our lines. And we're going to draw lines that are tangent to the 1.5 inch diameter circle. I'm going to make sure my T-square, which is out of the screen, is bumped up, again as usual. I'm going to put the 45, and you can see it over here, bottom wiggling. I'm going to lay this paper here. Now you can see the triangle underneath matches where this triangle is. Next, I'm going to place this one, the 30, 60, 90, and then I'm going to pull the sheet out. When I pull the sheet out, now I can pull, making sure that everything lines up and holding it firmly, and I'm going to draw a line that is tangent with this angle. Tangent meaning just touching. Then I'm going to just slide it up the 45-degree angle, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just touching. There's one side of the, or actually two sides of the 6-sided wrench head. And I'm not requiring that you have to put, get rid of the circle and clean it all up. It's very simple in terms of just going through the exercise and creating the actual wrench head. Alright, now we're going to lay our paper down. This triangle has now been moved to the right side, and then the 30-60 is right here. And I've got them placed already. One thing you've got to make sure of when you're doing this is that you don't have the, well here I'm going to slide it up and demonstrate. You don't want the 30-60 to come off like this. It's very important not to do this. Make sure that it stays above so that it gets a clean edge right across the next triangle. So I'm going to pull the T-square down, and you may have to, the way your paper's taped down, you may actually have to do it from the top, where you put the triangles coming from the other side, where you put the T-square up here and the triangles are going in this direction, opposite of where they are. Again, I check to make sure. I draw my one side of my hexagon. Then make sure that my T-square stays bumped up. I slide this forward. Make sure that I'm just tangent. Now I've got 4 of the 6 sides completed. And then the last one is very easy from the standpoint that it's just the 45. And this has created the hexagon wrench head that is offset from the horizontal center line by 15 degrees. And one might ask, why would you want to offset that by 15 degrees? The reason you would want to do that is in the place where you're trying to get this over a nut or a bolt, you may not be able to get it in. If it was straight, you'd have no options except to just upside down or right side up. The wrench would only end up in the same location. And if the nut was turned slightly, you may be in a spot where you can't get at it at all. So what you want to be able to do with the wrench is you actually want to be able to flip it like this, and you'd be able to, if you notice, you can get this, or you can get a bolt that's this direction, so that it gives you more options in terms of how to get a nut or a bolt off in a tight place. That's why they do that. Now our last procedure is that tangent arc construction, and it's a 3/4 inch arc. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to set my compass to 3/4 of an inch. And I like to do things instead of just one at a time. Since there are 2 of them, I would like to do both at the same time. So what I need to understand is when I'm trying to find a missing arc here and here, I have to use the adjacent features to it. Now, the adjacent feature to this missing piece is this straight line, which was given through our drawing. The same with this is this. And then the entire circle is for each one. So what I'm going to do is I am going to strike an arc at 3/4 of an inch down and then 1/3 of an inch up. The hard point of the compass can go anywhere along this line, all the way up to this point, anywhere. You can put it over here, you can put it here. I don't recommend putting it right here, even though you can do it. I'm just going to do it right here. And I call it a measurement arc because I'm measuring away from the surface. We don't want to do it with a ruler because the ruler can be tipped this way and such. The 3/4 inch will give us the furthest away point. And it's very easy to do. I'll even do one way over here. We'll go here. Whoops. Now I missed. I found the hole where the compass made that. This is probably adequate because our high spot is up here. We want to be as far away from our object line as we can be when we're using the arc. We're not going to be striking measurements down in here, but it's going to be up there. Now, with the circle, because it goes all the way around, I only have to make one. I can make it here, 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 wherever. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to take my 3/4 inch and I'm going to make it way over here. Now we've got our measurement arcs done. At this point, we need to bring our measurements over to where we can use the compass to strike this particular arc. So I'm going to line up here at this point, and I don't need to draw a big long line, dark or anything, just a nice little line. Make sure I'm there, and I'm just going to put it over here. See it right there? And I'm going to do the same thing with my T-square over here. I'm going to find this and do a little bit, and then I'm going to come over here. Somewhere along this line and this line, this is going to be used to intersect from what I've got here. But I can't use a triangle or the T-square because I've got a circle. So I have to use the compass, but I have to use the compass from the center of the circle instead of the edge. So now I'm going to go to the center of the circle and I'm going to use the thumb screw on the compass and I'm going to open it all the way up till I get to the highest spot on that measurement radius right there, and I'm going to strike an arc there, check to make sure it's good. Then I'm going to bring the compass over, I'm going to make an intersection there, and then I'm going to make one here. Notice how I can go all the way around and still end up at the same location. So that's how we do that piece. Next, we go back to 3/4 of an inch. I'm not going to go back to 3/4 of an inch. In theory it should work, but it doesn't always. I am going to look to find a spot where when I open and close the compass, it touches the line for the handle and the circle. And here it's a little bit short, so I'm going to open it up just a touch, and I'm going to, at this point, I'm just going to sweep that arc to there, and that's all there is to do. That's it. We don't go any further. Again, I'm going to go here, and I'm not going to rely on the same setting. I'm going to check to make sure it touches, because it kind of depends on where my line ended up. I'm going to go right there, sweep that arc, and that construction is done. Depending on your instructor, you may have to dimension the drawing. Typically that's what you have to do. You have to darken in lines, complete the title block. You leave these construction lines on there. Always leave those. Well, if you drew an arc like this, I would erase it because you only need the little crossover lines. That's all you need to show that. The other thing that is most important to remember when you're doing this, the first thing I check when I'm looking at this drawing, I flip it over on the back and I look for the tiny little pinholes where you have created the measurement radii and where you have completed the intersections so that you can swing these arcs. And these arcs, remember, adjacent features. This is adjacent to this on the one side, the circle is adjacent on the other. It doesn't have to be a full circle. It could be just like that. Then, again, this point here is adjacent to this feature, and this point is also adjacent to this, which gives you this arc and this arc. And that's how it's constructed, and that is where you have that little tiny plus mark that says 3/4 of an inch radius. That's out in space, and that's how you find that. It's as simple as that. The majority of people don't realize that this is the kind of stuff you can do with a compass. They just think you can do circles. Circles are just one of the things they can do. This is a geometric construction with trigonometric function. Remember, we've drawn lines here that are tangent to a circle, meaning just touching. Here we've constructed arcs from adjacent features. And the new thing we've created is the line breaks. So that's the closed end wrench. The different handouts are available. Use circle templates and a compass, and it shouldn't take you too long. And if you're a little bit off on some of these things, or you swing arcs a little wide, just erase them. It's very easy to do over again. But make sure that you don't rely on the 3/4 inch measurement. Just make sure that you fit to the exact points. That's it. Any questions with it? Of course, just come up and see me. I'll be glad to help you out. Thanks for watching.